All right, welcome back everyone to our final Draft Premier League Season 7 captain interview. And we are joined by the captains of the Caketakers, GeniusX and BasedTech. Please introduce yourselves.
Yo, what's up? My name is GeniusX. I'm a graphic boomer, but I'm also the GOAT. What's up?
Yes, and I'm Tech, also a bit of a draft league boomer. I'm not an MVP, DPL MVP like some of the other people in these interviews, but I have won best comeback player in season 4, so that is very impressive.
That is
Yeah, I do
impressive.
feel like I gotta set a few things straight before we start. It feels like a lot of players have forgotten that I used to be a mainstay in the DPL captaincy.
Yeah.
All of these PRs having saying that I have no captain experience whatsoever. All of these current players right now, they were all hand raised by me. These players like Rai, these players like Draw, these players like TJ, all of them, I drafted them when I was in season 1 and 2 of DPL, and look what they've become now, menaces in the draft scene.
Yeah, that's what happens. This is ZFG reputation. They've all forgotten.
Team ZFG as well. That was a fun
That's
time.
Okay.
But
We're here to avenge ZFG.
But yeah, it's great to have you guys on. I appreciate you guys participating in this. It should be a fun time. But
Absolutely, thanks for making time for us.
so I guess I can first start off asking, since Genius has been a DPL captain before in seasons 2 and 3, and you said 1 as well?
Yeah, 1 just was Mayo instead of Tynan.
Yeah, so it's from seasons 1 through 3, and then Tech, I believe this is your first time captaining in DPL.
Oh yes, very excited.
So, have you guys discussed any realistic expectations that you have for this season? Maybe for on the team level, and then maybe on a personal level, since you guys have kind of took a break and come back slowly into the community this past year.
Personally, I think that we can only expect the best from ourselves. I think that although there are some very scary competitors in this, that if we stick to our style and kind of don't forget that we understand this game very well and know what it takes to win, then we'll be just fine throughout the season.
Yeah, I think every team is going to come into DPL with the expectation that they're going to win, and we're no different. I think fundamentally what's important for me personally is to just draft a good team and have fun for the most part. But at the same time, I'm also expecting to get MVP this season for myself in the gen I play. And I think I'm not really thirsting for a specific seeding placement in the top for playoffs. I think as long as we're in the top 4, I'm happy. And I think every team in the top 4 has an equal chance to go for championship. The previous 2 times I've made playoffs as captain, I've gotten out in the first round every time. So I guess the first step for Tech and I is to hopefully get into the finals. And I have no doubt that if we do make it into the playoffs, we will no doubt be a solid contender for championships.
Very well spoken. And yeah, I mean, once you get past the first round, it's just going to be a dogfight. Anything goes at that point. You have an equal chance at that point. But I will say, just making the playoffs, statistically, the 1 seed has never won DPL. And I think the 2 seed has maybe won it once, but that's about it.
Well, I think absolutely that if we were to make the 1 seed, that we could absolutely change that.
It is important though, because I think I've fallen to the 1 seed curse twice, once as a captain and once as a player.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think I am a little bit superstitious about it, but I think we'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Yeah.
What team was on the 1 seed curse for using? I was on a Wishcash gang, which had that shit going on.
When I captained, it was season 2 for ZFG, and then when I was a player, it was last season on MV.
Yeah, that's absolutely real.
I kind of believe it at this point. But maybe you guys can change that this season. Maybe someone else can change that. But yeah, it's not looking too hot for the 1 seed people. But I guess we can transition over to talking about some of the changes that DPL has made to its format this season. The first being the introduction of Scarlet and Violet into the playing tier rotation. So now we have 2 Scarlet Violet games per week, and then 1 of the older generations, Sword and Shield, Yusum, and Oras. And then each team will now be allowed to choose 1 extra tier amongst those 4 to create the 7-game regular season series. What are your thoughts on this format? And do you think it's like a great addition to have, or do you think they could have possibly done better?
Personally speaking,
Sorry, we both just waited. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think DPL should have just gotten rid of Oras. Personally, I don't think we should have committed with the 4 gens. I think going forward, it would always be best to be a 3-2-2 split across 3 generations instead of having 4 generations you have to work with. I think that puts a lot more strain on just specific building, drafting, and prep in general. You have to prepare for 4 generations. And it also makes it so that the emphasis is much more on trying to focus down on the other team's weak spot rather than just going for overall general play and strategy. Personally, I don't mind the thing where each team chooses one extra gen per week. Although there is the worry that because there's limited drafts, a team that potentially has a bad draft might have to be forced to bring it every week. And I can see that being a potential issue. But I also do think that given that there are a lot of players who are willing and want to play Oras and have Oras as their main tier, I'm not against the format being 4 gens. It's just that me personally, I would have preferred DPL as a whole to stay as something that's only within 3 gens.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no real way to account for the fact. Like, anyone who's played in a team tour really knows that there's always that one team that you just kind of never really want to use. And unfortunately, with this format, that's going to have to be used. It's tough to say, though. I'm not really an Oras player. A lot of people really bend over backwards for that generation, so I kind of don't really see it leaving anytime soon. But I also think that there's a possibility that this sort of format ends up being a little too volatile, similar to the way that, I guess the way that Mons get banned. This would kind of end up being something that would make people kind of feel a little bit shook. There's going to be a lot of, certain captains are going to take really great advantage of this. Certain teams are going to take advantage of this. Others are going to struggle. We're going to try to make sure that we're on the upside of that, of course. We'll see how this goes forward. I think that with this sort of format, you're going to end up with, like Singh said, probably no more Oras pretty soon.
Yeah, I was on the admin side seeing the discussion of whether or not Oras should be retained or removed. I heard discussions of Sword and Shield possibly being axed as well because it was the most recent generation.
That's interesting. I mean, it kind of seems like that's sort of biased because people think Sword and Shield is so boring. I mean, kind of makes sense, but that doesn't really make any sense to me. In terms of axing it just because it's the most recent, but
also I think Oras is more boring than Sword and Shield. Personally, I think Oras is boring as fuck as a draft generation. But also, I think something else has to be accounted for is with the limited amount of drafts. There's a lot less counter picking when it comes to picking drafts. Like right now, in the current state, if you play one USIM game per week, it's basically 50-50 as to which draft you're going to choose out of the 2. Whereas in previous generations, you have 3 drafts and you pick 2. So that leads to much more sort of mind games during the draft picking process. Mm-hmm. And I think this does take a little bit away from that. But I also do think it gives the captains more sort of role in terms of strategically picking which gen they should go with in the process.
I mean, there's also when you're choosing your tiers, like you said. No, I'm not even gonna lie. I just totally blanked out on what I was gonna say. But I'll just use that as a transition to the next topic. But so the other change that we introduced was to the Scarlet and Violet tier. So in Sword and Shield, we didn't use the introduced mechanic of Dynamax because it was unbalanced, too gimmicky if we were to introduce it to Draft League. But this season, we are introducing the new mechanic of Terastallization with the Scarlet Violet games. And the rule set includes 2 free Tera captains, so they're not restricted by points in any way. And then at Team Preview, all of your Tera types on your Mons will be revealed for both sides. What are your thoughts on the decision for this rule set? Do you think it's balanced? Do you think it's a step in the right direction, or do you think they could have gone a different route?
Yeah, so seeing all the stuff there that L5 has posted, of the screenshots of what it's going to look like, where you have the Tera types everywhere, very well done, absolutely. One of our unnamed associates was mentioning a format, or when we were discussing the format with them, they were talking about how they thought it was going to be like you have to say it in the chat before the battle. Certainly very, very nice that we're not going to have to do that. That's for sure. Even though that would be hilarious, and I think it would make for some very funny forfeit losses. But I think it's a good for balance. I'm always going to be on team. Let's just keep Terastallization just as it is. We've gotten rid of the way that DPL has done it. It's gotten rid of most of the guys that are really just kind of over the top with Terastallization. Dragonite's been banned. All the guys that are usually getting banned. Dragonite now among them. Your Roaring Moons, your Palafins, all that sort of shit. All getting banned. So I definitely would have liked to see all sorts of Terastallization, because with this sort of format, I suppose it is balanced. It just does make it a little bit less fun, but more balanced. You do want to see, rather than anything happening, you kind of have a choice now between a 50-50 or just what I think will be really good in just Stab Tera.
Yeah, for me personally, I'm indifferent about it. I'll have to play a few games with the new format before I can come to a conclusion. But I've talked with L5 about this specific topic, and to me, I've never found the problem of Tera to be what Tera type is going to come, or like the infinite possible amounts of sets that could come given the flexibility of Tera. Because I feel like either way, you're going to have to deal with that in prep anyways. For me personally, the most problems I found with Tera is the 50-50 that comes with when a Tera should happen during the game. And to me, I feel like revealing Tera types at the start of the battle might somehow facilitate that problem. As in, like, if you have a 4x Fighting Weak Mon that is revealed to be a Tera Flying type, the opponent is going to have to face a potential 50-50 as to whether they should go for the fighting move or whether they should go for another type move that is super effective against flying. And personally, that's the largest issue I've found with Tera, and I'm not sure whether this change solves that problem. But I also know that I'm kind of like the vocal minority when it comes to this being the largest problem with Tera. But I also do agree that as a core mechanic, we should definitely have 2 Tera captains. I think the flexibility and the sort of skill that's required to decide when and how and who one should Tera at any given situation during a match is very important and quite skillful as well for a player. So I do think it's a step in the right direction, but I've always been a vocal advocate for unbanning stuff. In fact, I was one of the only people who thought Flutter Mage should have stayed in the format at the start of the generation.
What the fuck?
But that's a different point. But I do think I'm intrigued to test it out. I'll have to play a few games before I come to a full conclusion. But I do think I'm open to testing it out, and I think it could be a positive change for Gen 9.
And yeah, and you mentioned, you said like you think the largest issue with Tera that they didn't fix was the 50-50, whether in your example, quad weak fighting mon like King Gambit turning into a flying type, what move you should be clicking. What type of rule set, or what type of way could they, what thing could they introduce to actually balance that? I mean, do you have an idea like that you've thought of that might help with that?
I don't necessarily have a concrete plan as to how that could be balanced, but I do think keeping the type unknown makes it better than revealing the type, because I feel like by revealing the type, the award that comes with winning the 50-50 is worse the risk. A lot of the scenarios, because sometimes it might just be a game-winning play if you get that 50-50 correct. Whereas if you don't reveal the type, you're much more inclined to go for the mid-round play, because the risk is much higher if you predict the Tera type incorrectly. So for me, I feel like by revealing the Tera type, it incentivizes players to go for these high-risk, high-reward plays, and I feel like that makes it more uncompetitive. But at this point, it's also just conjecture, and I haven't played any games in this new format, so I guess we'll have to see.
Also, like as a captain, like I can just like see like watching games, like imagining like any Gen 9 game, and like imagining your player going for that 50-50 and just sweating bullets. Like it's gonna be annoying as shit. That's for sure. I do agree though. 2 Terra Captains very nice and gonna be very fun. I'm excited for that.
Yeah, it should be a fun tier to spectate for the fans, but I feel like it's like prepping for it and playing in it. I feel like it's going to be quite interesting. I do expect maybe like a good amount of large victories, maybe initially, but hopefully it balances itself out. Balance them on right there.
Yeah,
13
sure.
points.
Honestly, though, we should unban Dragonite and Palafin. I'm all for it.
Palafin I would love to see it. I think Palafin's okay.
Also, to go back to your Fluttermane comment, like at least in LD, I actually wanted that unbanned as well initially, but no one agreed with me. So
Sean, only you and I super light.
Fluttermane is it's actually him.
Hey, I mean, we allowed what, like a 15-point Dragonite with Tera? I mean, why not just allow like a Fluttermane?
Yeah.
8.9 with Tera.
Yeah.
We're not gonna talk about any of that. It's all cursed.
But I guess we can move on to some more auction-related topics. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, how confident do you feel going into this auction? Obviously, there are some teams who have, 25k more budget than you, because they didn't buy the extra captain slot. Has that influenced your preparation drastically for like what type of players you might try to like buy for? I mean, because obviously if you can't afford someone, you might have like kind of have to set like more realistic budget ranges before you like give up on someone and like let the teams with bigger budgets kind of drain their budget for you.
If you want to go first.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I think that in terms of our auction plan, we've just got. I kind of feel like it's more a matter of. I kind of have an idea of which players I might not gel with so well or might not like have as much faith in. Just in terms of like the player pool, and who's already there. The majority of players are people who I would like to end up working with, so you just take it from there. And then honestly, it's a matter of we think that anyone else who we can play with is going to be completely fine. We do have plans for certain players. There's definitely 1 or 2 players that we're looking to get and kind of have as I don't know. I guess I wouldn't say staples on our team. I don't believe in the star player mentality ever since I saw the seasons of not only myself screwing up as the star player, but plenty of other people, which has happened a few times, but plenty of other people. So I don't really know about that, but there's definitely a lot of players on the board that I'd like to work with. So I think the one thing I will say though is that all these people who are going around parading their kind of like ideas on who they want to draft, I hope they're trolling, because otherwise they are trolling either way, that's for sure.
Yeah, for me personally, I think 25k is quite a big difference, and I think it does bring a lot into changing how the way we prep which player you might potentially pick up. For me personally, I'm not a big fan of the system where it's like buy a captain and then you have extra budget. To me, it feels like, because then some players, I feel like these so-called star carries in the player pool are then pretty much 90 or 100% going to a team with more budget because they need it, or they would want a star player to compensate for the fact that they believe their captains aren't as great as players. But I think it should most definitely be an even playing ground to make the draft sort of. I think the draft would be better if it was the even playing ground among all captains, and captains didn't have to buy, and it's just captains could play anytime they want. Because to me, it feels like it might decentivize a player from signing up if they were wanted to be on a few specific teams, but they realize that their value as a player will make them one of the top picks, and then they see the signups and they're like, perhaps I won't get onto some of the teams I want to because a lot of the time I might just end up on the team that's more budget. So I do think it is better to have a equal playing ground across all teams. But at the same time, I think it will make for an interesting experience. And I think either way, the performance of a captain can vary greatly depending on a lot of factors. And I guess, to me, I think it will be an interesting experience because this is my first time drafting with sort of different playing fields for each team.
Mm-hmm. The one last thing I will say about this is I think that the teams did do a nice job kind of deciding which of them, like at max potential, a lot of these 100K teams rather than 125K, like their captains, that extra captain slot, like they probably are each worth around 25K. So I think that that's kind of a sort of level playing field overall.
Mm-hmm. And not to mention, since you bought an extra captain slot, you actually have only draft 7 players at minimum rather than 8.
Zing, did we buy an extra captain slot?
We never actually said we would buy a second captain slot. It kind of was just decided for us.
Just assumed that we would do it, but hey, you know what?
Yeah, I mean the auction hasn't started yet. They said decide before the auction, so.
Yeah, we might just take that 25K and just kidding, probably fucking not. There's no way.
I mean, we're both going 8-0, so
yeah,
be a waste not to.
No point.
That would be very impressive if both captains went 8-0. I'd like to see something like that. But yeah, moving on to the other topic revolving around the auction. So dipping into the player pool, are there any returning players from previous seasons that have signed up that you kind of expect to decline in performance a little bit? I know a lot of people have not really liked this question, but I'm always curious to see where people's thoughts are on this.
What has there been like? What's people not liked about this question? Kind of like it's just tough to answer, or they don't want to.
Yeah, they don't want to be rude or anything. So.
Oh, okay.
I guess they also don't want to reveal who they potentially might draft in the auction. So.
I mean, before I used to ask like who they think would have a boost in performance, and obviously they didn't like that one because that might reveal like who they're interested in.
But yeah, no, for me, I think I'm not going to say too much about the players, but I will say a bit about the captains. I think let me just pull up my list of captains because I don't remember.
It's a very safe option to go for.
But I think out of the captains, I think Aster will have a drop in performance, and I think Aster is a great player. But I think Aster's the type of player who definitely needs more prep help and more sort of like a carry sort of telling him what to do during a game to do well in a game. And I think that's going to be the general trend for this season. I feel like there's going to be less the players who solely rely on their teammates helping them, sort of hand holding them throughout prep and throughout like potential scenarios in the game will do it much worse this season compared to last season. Whereas people who can sort of hold their own in prep and then play will have a slight surge in performance. So I think out of the captains, from what I can see, I think Vest will have a surge in performance. I don't think he will go 1-6 again. I think he'll go even at least. And I think Aster will definitely not be able to put up that insane performance that he did last season again, MVP worthy performance. But it would be great to see him succeed again. I just don't see it happening. And I think for some of the other teams, I think I is not going to perform as well compared to his previous seasons. I think I is a great player still, and I think he'll definitely be playing not Gen 9 because I think he's not that great in Gen 9. But I think his sort of the way he preps and plays is going to get caught on by a lot more players this gen, and I don't think he'll have that dominant of a performance in DPL as his previous seasons. And I think other than that, most other players should perform about how they did. Regarding Cookie, actually, I think Cookie will actually keep performing well. That's my hot take. I think regardless of his luck, I think he will still put on a great season, and I think he'll go positive for sure.
Very insightful. Tech, do you have any thoughts you want to add on to?
Any thoughts on players who might not do as well? Look, if you guys just go back to that point about that a Genius made about how if we have any player who's not gonna put in their work, kind of needs their hand held, it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle for them. So you just want to go around and look at the doc, see any players like that. Maybe we wouldn't like them on our team. Maybe they might fall off, but we'll see.
That's fair. Then I guess I'll move on to this more descriptive type of question. So, if you were to describe yourself as a captain or your style of captaining in one word, what would that one word be? And obviously, you, Genius has been a captain before, and in fact, this is your, I think, first time ever, or did you captain in a?
No, this is my first time ever in a real team tournament. So fitting that I would start in DPL.
Mm-hmm. So I guess I would ask, describe your style or would-be style of captaining in one word.
This is tough. I might have to pull up my dictionary real quick. Thesaurus.
Thesaurus.
I think that it's gonna be stupid and not very good word to pull from my thesaurus, but it's gotta be fun. And why do I say fun? Not because I want us to just goof off and have a good time, but because I've just seen the difference in a fun team and like a not so fun team, and I think it not only comes from the environment of the server, but the drafts as well, especially the drafts. So I'm all for us having as much fun as we can. I'm not going to be shutting anything down without proper reason on my team. We're just I'm going to look at all suggestions. Obviously not all of them are going to be taken as seriously as others, or I guess that's the wrong thing to say. They're all going to be taken seriously, but some things are just better for the team. We all know how it goes. How about you, Genius?
I'm not sure. I think my style of captain, I'll go with the word probably like support or respect. I think I echo your sentiment. I think the best way to foster a great team environment is to have people respect each other and people take each other seriously. I think the worst team tour experiences I've had has always been where the egos are too large and then they clash together. But I do think if we are able to sort of have these large egos respect each other, then that's when a truly good team will be born. And I think I've definitely been in a team and captain a team that has achieved that before. And Strong was also in said team. So I think you can attest to that as well. But I do think when the environment is fostered with respect, that's when truly a team will perform to their utmost potential.
Absolutely, that's pretty much what I was going for. It's the respect thing there, and that's what comes from just enjoying each other. Be respectful.
I like that. Promoting respect in the team environment. It's always going to foster good results, and good results means you're going to be winning. Winning is fun.
Exactly.
And
most fun thing.
Okay, so now that you've described your one word, we can move on to a couple of our last questions. The first being, are there any specific captain cores that you want to play very badly and send a message to? And if you want, you can call them out right now in this interview.
Yeah, I got one. L2P, that's for sure. L2P, because I'm thinking about all those times over quarantine where we would play Among Us, and y'all were both so I'm so good at being crew. I can flick all the buttons so fast, and I'm always so swift at the admin table. But I was always just a little sneakier in the beginning. That's for sure. Especially as imposter. And you've decided to bring that Among Us shit with you on your logo. So absolutely come at me. I'm excited to play you guys, especially in a Mons format. Genuinely. As for the other teams, absolutely no beef with any of them. Mad respect. Best of luck.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm just going to be standing behind my players. If they want to shit talk a team, I'm always going to be behind their backs. But it doesn't really matter to me who the captains are for the other teams. The reason I joined DPL is because I feel I want a chip, and I feel like a player of my caliber deserves a chip in a trophy cabinet. So the captains could be any Billy, Joe, or John, whoever. They don't really matter to me. All I know is that I'm going to win the chip, and that's it.
Yeah, it's easier. Honestly, it's easier to flame the team once the players are going to be in it. Yeah, law of averages. It's only 2 players, which is every goofball on their team.
Maybe I should re-ask all the captains after the rosters come out.
Perhaps. I'd be much more interested.
But yeah, we can move on to our final question, and it's more of a prediction-based answer I'm looking for. So based solely on these captain cores, and obviously we don't know the rosters yet because the auction is tomorrow, or today when this video comes out. What 4 teams do you predict to make this season's playoffs?
Start Genius.
All right. Obviously us. I think that's a no-brainer. I think people are forgetting how much of a force. I have a 66% playoffs rate as a captain. Going to be 75 after this season. And then other than us, I do think Learn to Play is going to make playoffs, coming off of their COK win, and I've heard a lot of good things about Kaz as a captain specifically. And I think iPro is also I think he's a player who never really falls off, no matter how much of a break he takes. So I think they will make playoffs. Hot take, I don't think Inferno Army will make playoffs, given, I think I said earlier that I don't think Aster will perform as well this season, and I don't think L5 will be performing that great either. So I think if they do, their players are going to have to step up hard. But as of right now, I don't really expect them to make playoffs. And I think the family is just going to come down to Rise performance mostly, and how much he can support his team. I think based on my predictions, I won't do that great this season. So I feel like even though they have 2 champions as captains, or previous champions as captains, they might struggle at making playoffs, but I do think eventually they will somehow scrape by. So I do think us and the family and LTP, Learn to Play, will be in playoffs. And for the last team, I think it's a toss-up. I think it's a toss-up between, and I think this is a hot take, I think it's going to be between TJ and Cookie's team, the Offseers, and the Royal Conquerors, between Toxic and Vess. I think Toxic and Vess is just going to depend on what their team is. I feel like that captain core will only vibe with specific type of players. And if they can get those specific type of players, I can see them making a great run. If they can't, I can see them collapsing hard and falling flat on their face. And I think TJ Cookie team is sort of like my off-meta pick. I think people are not giving TJ the credit he deserves. He's been here for as long as I have, pretty much. That's a long ass time in the draft community. So, and I had said before, I do think Cookie will also put up a very good performance just like last season. So I do think based on that and the fact that they have an extra 25k in draft, they have more flexibility. I think they have a very good shot at playoffs. And as for the other teams, I don't believe in the Ian 100% playoff superstition. I think Ian and Hacker are not going to be making playoffs this season. And I think Lejean and Sablo, they're the wild card. Lejon and Sabo, they can shake things up, but for the most part, I also don't expect them to be in playoffs.
Yeah, Lejon and Sabo is interesting. So let me say what I think. First of all, we're gonna make playoffs. Obviously, not only has out of all the interviews, every team has said they're gonna make playoffs, but it's like Genius said, you know, y'all sleeping on us. That's for sure. For sure.
I think only a
think
couple.
L5
I think only a couple captains have actually said the Caketakers would make the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. Only a couple of them have said, and I think it's fair enough. I've been out of the game for a little bit, but they're sleeping on us. That's all we're gonna say. I will destroy them. Then we got I think L5's team will probably end up making it. I don't know. I just have a lot of respect for L5 as a player, so I can't bet against him. And then let me think. Perhaps Seidel and Kaz will make it, and then for me it's between Seidel and Kaz making it, and the family as like that third slot. Just as the other two like kind of top teams, and then I think the Lejon Sablo team has to make it. Perhaps and this is just in theory, but some team has to be colluding with sort of more villainous individuals in the pool. I think out of all of them, it's got to be Lejon and Sablo. No. That's just me. I don't know, but that's just how I feel. We'll see how it goes in the auction. My predictions
sound very fair. I appreciate the confidence every captain exudes. Picking their own team to make the playoffs. But I mean, that's the point of captaining, right? If you didn't think you had a shot, you wouldn't be participating.
I think out of sort of just playing abilities wise, I think we are the strongest captain core. I think, at least me personally, it takes me out of the game, but I know he still probably will smoke all of these guys. But none of these guys, except for the guys I haven't played, like Kaz and whatnot, I'm pretty sure I have like a positive record on all of these guys. Rai, L5, Aster, TJ, all of these guys I have a positive record against. I think maybe Sido I don't, or iPro, but that's about it. Vast Toxic, I have a positive record on all of these guys, so I'm very confident in my abilities, both as a player and as a captain. So you're gonna definitely be seeing the Caketakers in playoffs. I can guarantee you guys that.
Not hard to win a game. Even less hard when you got like one mock and then like what? And we're gonna have all this fucking prep support. It's gonna be easy as shit. Come on.
Yeah.
All right. That's all I have for questions and topics. If there's anything else you guys wanted to say specifically, let me know.
Thanks, Sean, for the interview. This is super fun time, and super excited for this season. Honestly, I hope that there's kind of more sort of I guess content related to the captains and the teams and stuff like that. It seems very fun. I've enjoyed watching all the videos and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it's been.
I guess for me.
Oh, you can go.
I just want to thank really quickly the hosts of DPL, L5, and all the admins like Sean, yourself, and then like a bunch of others. But at the same time, I also want to thank the people who's DM Tech and I and put the effort into trying marketing themselves as a player. I think DPL is a great place for new players to, like up and comers, to show they can be a force to be reckoned with in the draft. And while I haven't been able to respond to everyone, I have watched every replay sent to me and read everything that has been sent to me. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to draft everyone who has DM Tech and I, but I do appreciate everyone who has done so and made the effort in doing so.
Of course, final shout out to OB3 for making this logo. Insane logo of ours, which I personally think is the best logo. People will go for their nostalgia bullshit. Oh, they like the hammer and the mouse with wings. What? Only one that even holds a candle is the Infernal Armory. That's okay.
Wait, Tag. I think we should tell them the background behind the Caketakers.
Oh yes. Just in case anyone's still here, which probably not. But you gotta understand, Zing and I have the same birthday. So we're gonna be taking all the birthday cake, and during playoffs, when our birthday is gonna roll around, by the way. We'll be eating birthday cake, celebrating, and it's gonna be a great time.
Celebrating the DPL ship. Yeah.
I like that.
That's
I like
all.
that a lot.
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. Appreciate it. For everyone else who is still here, make sure to join the DPL server. It's in the link is in the description below. Make sure to catch the live auction 5 p.m. PST on Sunday. But yeah, thank you guys for coming out, and we'll see you possibly in more DPL related videos.
Peace.
Peace.